Welcome to another episode of the Sipping and Tripping podcast, where we connect with amazing people. Today's conversation is about having your cake and eating it too. I am your host, Desmond Black, and the people that's sipping and tripping with me today are the host and the co-host of the Dating Reset podcast. Now, Wonder, she's a certified dating coach. She's a support leader for the National um, Alopecia Arita Foundation and is proudly living with alopecia. She uses her platform to spread awareness and to empower others. She is also the host of the annual Stop the Stigma Mental Health Awareness event and Sickle Cell Awareness, which is now in its third year. She is passionate about changing the conversation around mental health and helping people reset their dating lives with intention. Last but not least, she is the owner of an upscale mobile hookah lounge. Walter, he's a grandfather of five. He's a master mason and the chairman of the, I'm not even going to say this right,
It's
the
Wampanoag.
Wampanoag,
Wampanoag.
Wampanoag Tribal Housing Commission. He is 60 years old and he enjoys conversations about politics, philosophy, and relationships. So, without further ado, How are you guys doing today, and how was your week so far?
I'm doing okay. My week has been busy, but no complaints at all.
It's been a
Okay,
little
Walter.
ruined for me. Got a big project going on, so it's been a busy week. But the weekend has shaped out pretty good, though.
That's good. That's good. So everybody in good health, right? That's the plus here.
That
Yes.
is.
All right. So on my platform, I like to conversate, educate, and entertain. And since this is you guys' first time, I'm just going to ask you a couple few questions, um, just to get to know you a little bit more. So tell me and the viewers about your podcast and what made you start it.
Well, I started the podcast when, I've been married for 18 years and now I'm separated and I've been thinking about dating and having these conversations with individuals. They say the pool water is tainted. And I know
Hmm.
that there's a lot of conversation out there and a lot of podcasts that discuss relationships, but not necessarily dating. And dating is the most important steps that you need to take before entering a relationship. And no one really discussed, the steps, important steps that there are while you're dating before you end up in a relationship.
Okay. Okay. Anything you want to add to that, Walter?
Well, I was the only guy that really wanted to express his viewpoints and talk about it. Guys don't like to open up and talk about these things.
Okay. That's true. That's true. I don't know why that is. It's healthy, and plus we all go through relationships. Like you can't have a relationship one sided where it's just a man or it's just a woman. So that's one thing I don't know. I don't understand like why men just they feel like they're afraid to open up about certain things or to express their vulnerability. Vulnerability. It's just I don't know. It's just the way things is.
It's called having your cake and eating it too. Remember?
Yeah, yeah. Ain't that the
I'm gonna
truth?
date, but I ain't gonna talk about it.
So where were you guys born, or where are you guys from?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Yep.
Oh, Massachusetts. Oh, you're both from Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So how's life up there? Because I've been close, but I've never been to Massachusetts.
The weather's,
Comparing it to what exactly?
yes.
I mean, that's fair. It's fair. I mean, I don't know where you guys have been, but I live in New Jersey, so
I'm gonna say better than New Jersey.
yeah. And why you say that?
I think the pace is a little slower than Jersey.
Okay, that's a fact. That's a fact. Yeah,
Yeah, the
because I've
pace.
been to Rhode Island and Connecticut, so that's close to you guys.
Yeah, and I think we're a little more diverse than New Jersey is.
Okay. Okay, I can understand that because, like I said, when I went to Rhode Island and Connecticut, it was definitely different for me. It's the vibes was different, the dress code, everything, and it was slower. It reminded me like of down south, like because I used to live in North Carolina as well, so it kind of gave me those vibes. It was everything was much slower,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
because it's the fast life here, like sort of like New York. Um, are you guys religious?
I'm spiritual.
Yeah,
Spiritual?
I'm gonna say the same.
Yeah, I love that. I'm getting that a lot these days. When I ask that question, a lot of people they say, "Nah, I'm spiritual." So I guess that's I'm not sure why he said that.
So we want to ask you then: are you spiritual or are you religious?
Okay, so I will say I am not religious. Spiritual, I'm not sure if I'm spiritual. Listen, I believe in a higher power, but I don't believe in the Bible and things of that nature. But lately, I have contemplated going to church and giving that a try. And that's mainly because sometimes in life where you try things your way and you keep running into the same obstacles, the same roadblocks. Sometimes you just sit back and say, maybe if I give this a try, maybe something to change, right? And that's how I look at it. So it's something that I'm contemplating, you know. But I've come from a religious family. My father's side of the family, like they highly religious. Like I said, they live in North Carolina, so they go to church all the time. And it's like a full time job. They go to church for like 8 hours or 10 hours, and I think that's excessive.
Yeah.
So all right, so like I said before, you guys got the podcast, the Dating Reset podcast. So I'm gonna use this episode as like a counseling session or a therapy session. So at any given time, you guys can comment or jump in. So I'm gonna give a little backstory for a little bit, right? So everything makes sense at the end. So I'm a father of 4 kids. My oldest son is 10 years old, right? His mom was a black woman. So then I have 3 other kids with a white woman. I have a son that's 5 years old, a son that's 2 years old, and my daughter will be 1 years old at the end of this month. And my oldest son's mom, I don't talk to her at all. Um, so all right, so I've been in a relationship with this woman, or my kid's woman, mother, for 7.5 years. Just like any other relationship, there's been a lot of ups, been a lot of downs. But at some point in the relationship, it kind of grew kind of stale, I guess. It started to feel like we were more like roommates than in a relationship. I don't know how or why, but I've tried everything in my power to try to rectify that, try to consult with her and say, hey, maybe we should try this, maybe we should try that, and it just felt like the efforts was one-sided between me and her. So um so that's that, a little backstory of that. So my kid's mom's my second kid's mom's, her name is Allison. So I was a kitchen manager in a restaurant, right? And just like many other jobs, it's forbidden to uh, be involved with the staff, right? So I remember one day I had an interview with this guy, and speaking of the devil, I had an interview with this guy, and he had no experience, and I just didn't feel like he would be a good fit for the job. So one thing I hated is being a manager is like turning people down. But like he came with his aunt, and so then she's like, "Hey, what about me? You got a spot for me." So I wound up hiring her not because of qualifications or because of experience, but I hired her because I found her to be highly attractive. So that's the other woman in this story. So this was around like July of August or August of last
Well,
year.
let me ask you this
Um,
question: were
go
you
ahead.
at the time still dating your other baby mama?
I was.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so I was, and that's what made things a lot difficult, to be honest with you. Like I said, we kind of like drifted apart, right? At least for me, I can't speak for her, but like that's how it was. It's like, she's a manager in the restaurant, I was a manager in the restaurant. My job was an hour and 10 minutes away. So that commute to work and from to home plus 55, 60 hours a week, it was a lot. So we didn't have that quality time, right? That quality of life, I couldn't even tell you what that was like. So I think that's a major component of why we kind of grew distant, right? So, but my thing was on my days off, her days off, whatever time we had together, for me it was like let's make that about us and the kids. Let's find a way to connect and grow from there, right? But again, I felt like it was one sided. So because I was a manager, right? I never wanted to cross the line with this other woman. Her name was Esther. And I never wanted to flirt, nothing like that, because I didn't want it to backfire and I didn't want to get fired, to make a long story short. Now, I remember one day, one of my bartenders she was flirting with me, right? And she made a comment about like the BBC. I'm not sure if you know what that is. And she made that comment to Esther, and Esther laughed about it. She said, "Oh, I love that." So this had started having my wheels turning, right? So I'm sitting here like, okay, so she's not really shy. She's engaged in these conversations. Then a short time after that, she started calling me baby, occasionally give me hugs, just these occasional slight touches and stuff. So again, my wheels start turning. She found me on Facebook. She found me on Snapchat. We exchanged numbers. Um, you know, so like I said, at work we used to flirt a lot, like just talking a lot, and it's just like it was something new, and like it was, I don't know how to put it, like it was entertaining, right? Like eventually she filled a lot of voids from my relationship, right? Like so a lot of things that I wasn't getting in my relationship, she was filling those voids. So like I said, it was just exciting for me. Me and Esther by January we was already dating, like in a relationship, right? Which is strange because I still was in a relationship. Um, so like it was hard for me because like I I didn't want to necessarily leave the relationship I was in because Allison, she made me a better man. She made me a better person, right? It was just hard where because it was like disconnect in the relationship, and I just couldn't figure out how to make that right. If that makes any sense to you,
Hmm.
right? Um, it was so, and then like going to work all the time. Like I said, it got to a point where I was saying Esther more than I was Allison, right? Um, so that played a part in it. Like I never went out to work or out in the world and say, "Hey, look, I want to cheat," or "I'm looking for somebody else." That was never my intentions, right? Like it's just something, like I like to tell people, it's just something that happened, right? It just organically just happened for me. And I was able to smile, right? And because in my relationship, I wasn't able to smile and enjoy myself, right? So all these things just hit me all at one time. Um, so yeah, like I said, I was still skeptical about being in a relationship with this other woman or even talking to her on that level because a lot of people were saying she was married, right? So I had eventually asked her if she was married. She said she was, but she said she was separated from her husband, and she said she'd been separated for a couple months. She told me she heard rumors I was married as well, and I told her I'm not married because truthfully I wasn't. I was in a relationship, but I wasn't married. So to me, I guess that was me justifying it in my head of why I was talking to her. So like I said, going to work every day and just talking every day, like we established some type of relationship. I remember one day I asked her if I could see her outside of work. She said, "Yeah." So we wound up seeing each other outside of work. We kept it simple and basic the first day. Like I just went picked her up from her house, and we just went to a local like Chinese restaurant, and we just talked. We talked for a couple hours, and it was good. Now the crazy thing is this: she's Ecuadorian, right? She's a little Latina, and she hardly spoke any English, right? So for me, I think what drew us closer together was the fact that like we had to rely on a Google Translate to converse. And so for me, it's like I think putting in that extra work and that extra effort of using a translator to converse with each other, I think that was what brought us closer together, right? In a normal conversation, you're just talking, right? But to go that extra mile to use a translator, and like I said, we sat there for a couple hours, and it was good. At the end of the night, I felt good. Um, so from there, like I remember us talking, and I was like, you know what? That was like more of a get together. Like, how about next time we see each other, we go out to dinner, right? So it could be more of a dating feel. So we eventually did that, and again, it was great. We went out to a restaurant. We really didn't eat much, but we just spent the time talking. And I remember at the end of the night, like I asked her for a kiss, and she was like, "Nah, maybe next time." So I felt a little disappointed. I remember, but at the same time, as a man, I was just like I was determined. So, like I said, we continue to communicate. And then eventually, I found myself spending a lot of money on hotel rooms, and we just spent the night with each other, and that made it even more better. Like every time we spent together, it was explosive. It was like the 4th of July. It was great. Everything just seemed right. Um, uh, Yeah, I mean, it just felt perfect. And I remember one day, my kid's mom, I never told her where I was going. Mind you, my job was like an hour, 10 minutes from my house. I remember one day we was out, me and Esther was outside, and my kid's mom, she was by my car. She was in her car, but she was parked in front of my car. And I was looking, I'm like, that looked like, and then she jumps out and then she got all mad. She wanted to fight the other girl. And it got real chaotic. Right now, this Spanish woman I'm speaking of, right? Esther, she wasn't legal or nothing like that. So she couldn't have like police contact. So we wound up leaving and the police was called and everything. My kid's mom called the police. She said I stole my car, which I didn't because it was my car. But like it's just I guess she was mad. She was about the situation. She was hurt. So that was the first thing. So it's like two, maybe three times that the police got involved, and which made it crazy. So Esther, she was like, "Oh, this is a bit much for me," And then Allison was like going to her Facebook, just Messenger, and it's like causing a lot of chaos. So Esther was like, "I never had to deal with nothing like this." I remember at one point in the beginning, Esther was asking me, she's like, um, if you're in a relationship, are you asking me to be the side chick? Because if that's what you're asking, right, just tell me and allow me to think about if I want to accept that role or not. And me being attracted to her, me not wanting no other man to have her, I was like, nah, like I want to be in a serious relationship with you. So they got to a point where she was like, well, what are you gonna do about that situation at home? So I was like, listen, I got to figure it out. But at the end of the day, it's like the relationship it's just felt like it's failed a long time ago. It's broken, and I'm not sure if we can make it right, right? And that's how I spun it to her. Like I said, every time we spent together, it was great. And then when I went home, I honestly felt like I was incarcerated or something. It was tough, right? And then, but like I said, I had my kids at home. I had to think about. And one of the things I thought about a lot was, could I see myself with Esther? And I said, yes, I could see. At the time, I said I could see myself with going either way. But Esther was new, and I was like, that's my heart wanted to go there, but then I couldn't take away the fact that me and Allison had so much time invested with each other, and we had the kids. Like we had all these plans, like go like vacations, and we had dogs at the house, and it's a lot of things I didn't want to get rid of or do away with. So that for me was a struggle in itself. And then I looked at the whole Esther thing. I'm like, well, she don't speak English too well, and I know we do the translator, which wasn't a problem. But when I was talking like long term, I was like, you know, how long could I do that? So it was a lot of questions. I remember at one point, Allison told me like, "Hey, tell you what, won't you spend 3 days without neither one of us? No conversations, no hanging out, nothing. Just try to figure out what you want to do." And I, like I said, having your cake and eat it too. I didn't want that. First, I thought like Esther would be like, "Oh, I don't want nothing to do with you," right? Because I felt like we needed more time to develop, right? And I just like, nah, she might walk away. So I need all the time I can get right now. So it got to a point that Allison was like, uh, you know, I don't like the situation, but I don't want to lose you. So if you split your time, I'll be somewhat okay with it. So she, like I said, she did not make it easier. So in my head, I'm like, oh, okay. So basically, she's saying I can have them both. And the other one, I know she wouldn't go for that. So I was like, I'm just gonna keep riding this out as long as I can ride it out. But in doing so, my feelings for this other woman was just growing. And then when I looked at my home life, I'm like, I feel like it's purgatory over here. So I'm more so thinking about this other woman every day that went by. So like I said, it was tough. Um, anything you want to add so far?
How much time have you been playing with hot water?
I got a
Four and
lot
a half.
of questions.
That's good. Look, so it was like 4.5 months.
4.5. Wow, that's a lot in 4.5 months.
I got
Yes.
a lot of questions.
All right, I'm
Go
going
ahead.
to Walter lead.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to kind of like jump to an end question. This is what kind of came up to me first, but I got a lot of other questions that probably predated that whole thing, anyways. At the
Okay.
time. What finally broke up the relationship for you with both of them?
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we can jump there real quick. So Allison was always saying like you got to choose, and I was like, please don't put me in that pushed me in a corner, right? So eventually I told her, if I had to choose, it won't be you. So so that's what it was. But the more I said that, the more infuriated Allison got, right? I mean, she started acting unnatural. I don't know and say unnatural because I've been to a lot of people about this, and they was, a lot of women say, well, she acted the way any woman should. So I don't know. I don't know. Because to me, I think she acted overboard and way more dramatic than she needed to. Now, as far as Esther, um, most of her issues was because of Allison, right? The police contact and things of that nature. But I guess the last straw for her, at least that's what she said, was all right. So let me say this first. So Esther, I want to get Esther pregnant.
Wait, hold
Yeah.
on.
What?
Who's Esther and who's Allison?
So Allison is my kid's mom. Now Esther is the Ecuadorian that I was saying.
That's the one with the 10-year-old, right?
No. So all right, the 10-year-old, that's my first baby mom. I was like, I don't talk to her or nothing like that.
Okay,
I
we got
just
a
said that
third
in the beginning.
party.
No, not a third party. It's just two because the third party is not existent. Like I was just saying, my oldest son, his mom is separate from Allison. That's all I was saying. So in this story, it's just Allison, which is my kid's mom, and Esther, which is the Ecuadorian that I was seeing. Right when I got to work, that's when I hired, and we started dating and messing around.
And that's the one who ended up getting pregnant.
Right. So she ended up getting pregnant. Now, for the longest, I kept her a secret from Allison, but when she got pregnant, I felt like I had no choice but to tell Allison about it. So that's how she found out about that. And listen, I wanted the kid and everything. I remember she had like two doctor's appointments, and doctors called me and said she was pregnant. So I was like, cool. And then she took the pregnancy test. She was, I was like, cool. Um, Now it was a tricky situation, I know, but I wanted the baby. So as far as the Esther thing, I remember one day she's like, oh, I made an appointment to get an abortion, right? And she know I was against abortions and stuff. And so she's like, you can come with me or you cannot, right? And I was off that day. So I was like, I'll be at your job when you get off. She's like, don't come to my job. So I wound up going to her job, and I acted terribly, right? And I just wanted to have a conversation. She was like, "It's late." She was, go home. I just drove an hour and 10 minutes to get here. Like, we gotta have a conversation. And I remember she got out her car and she started walking. She's like, "I'll walk home." So I had went and I grabbed her, not forcefully like I wanted to cause harm or nothing like that, but I had grabbed her for her to stop and slow down and walk back to the car. So she said that I grabbed her forcefully and it hurt. So she stopped talking to me for like 6 days before she even conversed with me. And then it hasn't been the same after that, right? Like she talks to me when she feel like it, right? And it's like at this point, like I can't say I'm fully over her because I'm not. Because every time she texts me or reach out, I do talk to her, right? But right now, it's been 3 days since I last heard from her, right? So I've been trying to figure out why I keep putting myself in that situation, right? Like, cause I tell people, oh yeah, it's over. She don't want nothing to do with me, right? And I'm good, and I'm content. But the moment she messaged me or she reach out, then it's like, here I am back to the same circle.
All right, Mr.
So
Fry, you want to go into your questions?
Well, the other question is, since the breakup with both of them, what have you done about self? What have
what
you
have
done?
I done about stuff?
Your
Okay.
mental, spiritual, your physical, whatever it is. What have you done about self?
Well, in the beginning, it was tough, right? Because this is when it was fresh with the whole Esther thing, and it went days where I didn't hear from her. So I actually lost weight. I was over here not eating. I was a hermit crab in my bed, right? So as days went by and she wasn't talking to me, I was like, I got to get up. I got to snap into it, right? So I had to snap out of it, and I just been doing a lot of things, like the podcast. I've been focused on this. Like this week, this is like the fourth episode I had. I just try to stay busy, you know.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and I've been reading a lot more, and just I got a planner, and I just start putting stuff in my planner. Like this is what I need to accomplish. This is what I need to accomplish. Um, and I've been doing better mentally, but I have moments of lapse where I sit back and I think about everything, and because sometimes I feel alone or lonely, right? So sometimes I sit here and I'm like, hey, and I might think about Esther because even right now, I don't know why I still have it up. I have pictures of me and her up. Why I don't know. For me, like I said, it's been tough because like my work schedule that I had is like I didn't have time to hang out with people or meet new people and stuff like that. So maybe that's part of it, but I don't know. She was the constant that I had, and I don't have that now. And then with me and my kid's mom, we got that situation. So it's like, dang. So now I put up my mom right now, which is I love her to death. We don't get along, so that's my dilemma. And I started going therapy. I go through therapy once a month.
All right. That's good. That's a good
Yeah.
thing. So I would like to reverse all the way back to you being unhappy in your relationship, because the thing is, on Dating Reset, we don't give advice. We have conversations about dating. We don't give tips. We don't give advice. We just have conversations around accountability, self-awareness, self-reflection. And during those conversations, it always triggers someone to really look in the mirror and do a self-assessment at themselves through those conversations. So, my first question for you is that, you were in a relationship. So for you to step out of that relationship and start dating is just like, without being transparent. Like when she asked you, well, I heard you were married and you said, no, I'm not married. That was the perfect opportunity right there to be transparent and honest.
Right.
So there
Right.
were a number of opportunities for you to come clean and just be open, honest, and upfront to both parties.
Right.
So, you can't be dishonest and then, wonder like, how did I get here? And it's due to
Right.
every decision that you made.
But
Right.
that's that we've talked about this a little bit off podcast and everything else. Men don't want to be told no or lose that thing that they want. So they're going to, very few men are going to be upfront. Very few are going to be upfront. And I don't know if that is a character issue or whatever it is within us, but it is definitely a question that or it's a situation I think we've all faced. I've faced it many a times myself. I'm like, I see something physically speaking, it pleases me. And this may not be the best scenario right now going for me. I might find a little enjoyment here, but that's the trap. In all honesty, that's the trap.
Well,
That
in all honesty, just because it's an excuse, the bottom line is
Right.
everything that it's cowardly. It's my thing is, if you're going to be a man, you have to really live up to that title, and being deceitful and being dishonest is not part of it. I know you in the beginning you said having your cake and eating it too, but sometimes that can really end up with diarrhea. You can end up with diarrhea. And the thing is, moving forward, we really need to really be honest. I mean, and my thing is, you really had nothing to hide, because she admitted she was married but separated. At the end of the day, she's still married.
Right.
So you two, you're in a relationship and she's in a marriage. So you two can then decide, where do we go from here, just by being upfront and honest.
So let me ask you this. So when you say being dishonest, you saying because I wasn't fully honest? Because here's the thing.
No. There's no such thing as fully honest.
The reason why I say that, listen, the reason why I say
That's
that
like saying I'm a little bit pregnant.
I say that because she knew about the relationship, right? She constantly asked me about it. But when she said marriage, the first thing I said was, "Oh shit, I'm not married," because I'm not, right?
Right.
But she knew that I was in a relationship, and the way I put it to her was, the relationship has been failing for a long time, right? So I never told her that I was single. So for me, mentally, I was saying I was being honest, because she asked me about it, and I never lied. I said, "Yeah, I'm in a relationship, but it's got a lot of problems, and I don't know if it can be fixed."
Right.
That's the
beginning.
You told the story. You said she asked you, were you married, and you said no. So
I was never married. Yes.
Yeah. So you left it at that. That was the impression that I got. So
okay, I apologize. Yeah. So she knew about the relationship, right? And then for her, when because I heard rumors she was married. When I asked her, she's like, "I'm not married. I'm separate. I've been separated for months." Now, it wasn't until she stopped talking to me that I thought that I wonder if she's still in that marriage, right? And because for her not to talk to me, like if it's real feelings there, I was like, it's impossible just to cut it off just like that. And that was my mindset.
Well, let me
It
ask
was
you,
just a lot of. Go ahead.
what was the problem with in the first relationship?
Allison, yes.
Whatever the situation with Allison, whatever the situation was in that, why could you not resolve that one way or the other before you,
Well,
before you started a whole nother one?
well, for me, like I felt like I was trying to fix the relationship. I mean, like I said, I felt like it was one sided.
No,
I try to come up.
I'm saying, why could you not resolve it one way or the other?
You mean like walk out, like leave the relationship or stay in the relationship?
Either we're going to stay together or we're not, you know.
Mm,
But before I decide to do something with somebody else, and now
right.
you are in effect playing with one person's emotions and another person's, which
Mm,
very seldomly ever turns out right.
right. And I guess that's what happened to me. So I guess I guess this is my punishment. But it's hard for me to say why I couldn't have. Like I said, I wanted this other woman,
Why did you want it?
but that's a lot of reasons. I mean, like, mainly because every time we was together, it just felt perfect, right? You know how nothing in life is perfect. It felt perfect, and the connection I had to it was strong. And plus, I was highly attracted to her. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's other things. I mean, but
So
yeah,
what do
I
you
just
miss?
couldn't separate.
What do you
Go
miss
ahead.
about? What do you miss about her right now? Now that she's out of the picture, what do you miss about her?
I mean, just it's you know what? A lot of people they don't talk about the little things, but it's the little things about her, right? And like I don't know, just everything from the way she smiled, the way she spoke, the way she talked, and she had me doing things I never did in a relationship or in life. Period. Like eh, I mean, like holding the door for her and stuff. I don't naturally do that, right? Like I've done it, but like
Why?
my thing is like so she had me opening doors.
Why?
She like
Why is that not?
I you said why it's not a part of me?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. But like have I ever done it? I have. But like my thing is if the woman's walking fast with me, I would never open the door. Like if she's in front of me, I'm not gonna run up there just to open the door. But like for her, she set the standard from the beginning. Right. She was one of those, she just stared at the door and then look at me. So I'm like, oh, I got it. So she was on top of me about that. And it's crazy. Like I guess in a strange way, that's little things like that made me miss her too. Like she made me change, right? Like from the outside looking in, I got a lot of attention from people from the outside looking in. They see me do these things. Like, oh yeah, you're a great man, right? And like everybody like attention. So I was getting attention from all like her and just anybody that witnessed our encounter together. You know what I mean? Um, yeah. I mean, but I can't tell you why exactly that I couldn't fully just leave the relationship I was in. I guess it was a bunch of uncertainty.
Well, I guess
Like
that's
I
a
said,
really need to answer.
you
Yes.
said really, but like 7.5 years versus a
I
couple months, it's like
But if you don't
I.
answer that question, what's to
Mhm.
stop you from falling into the same thing again?
That's a great question. That's a great question. I try to ask myself that as well. And lately I've been asking myself, oh well, am I ready to get back in a relationship right now? Right. And if I'm being honest with myself, the answer is no, because I've been asking myself that question, and I feel like I would fall victim to the same thing again, right? Until I find that peace, until I feel happy and whole, I feel like that will happen again.
You know,
Yes.
I
Yeah.
was married, got divorced, and I went through the same situation. I was like, and I went through therapy. And the biggest question I had was, I don't want to make the same mistakes in this half of my life that I made in the first half of my life.
Right.
And there were a lot of points that I had to discover. And
Mm,
then discover them all through therapy. I've discovered them through various sources, questions, times, conversations with different people. But I know that when I seek conversations with certain people, I'm going to get certain answers. If I go to a church, I'm going to get a religious answer. If I go to my friend, I'm going to get over someone is to get over on top of someone else. Kind of
right.
things like that. So it's a journey that you have to ask, but you have to ask yourself that hard question, and you've really got to search. within yourself, so that you can say, you know what, now I understand, and now I know what I'm looking out for.
Right.
And if you don't know what it is, you know, they say if you don't understand history, then you're going to be doomed to repeat it.
Yes.
No matter what
Right.
you do, you're gonna be doomed to repeat it. Now, it could be something out of your childhood that's making you do this. I don't know. You know, I
Right.
look back and my life mirrored my own father. And I'm like,
Right.
oh, you know, I got, you know, wow, I got to put the brakes on this one. You know,
Right.
so, you know, these are the kinds of things that you really seriously have to take a look at.
Yeah.
Right.
And on the podcast, we have topics like are you ready? And we
Yeah.
could dive in that conversation, and it really circles back to self-awareness. You have to figure out what you want, because oftentimes we date and we look for others to fill a void within ourselves, and they can't do that, you know. And that's when things fall apart. You have to be whole before you enter into any type of relationship. You have to work. You have to figure out what you want. If you want a situationship, there's different styles of dating out there. There's friends with benefits. There's situationships. So you have to figure out your style. And
Right.
from what I hear, it just seems like you're in the moment. Like you like how you feel in the moment. Like you're like
Right.
meeting her is hot, it's new.
Yeah.
You're the hotel room, spending that time, and then going back home and being miserable. It's the moment. What are you looking
Right.
for long term? Like you have to ask yourself these type of questions.
Right. You
Mhm.
know, and that's what makes it hard, because like I said, we was together, my kids' mom, we was together for 7.5 years, and it wasn't always like this. And I felt like everything was great, right? Like that's when like marriage was in the conversation. It's just, I don't know if she
It's
changed
called life.
when
You know,
she go
it's
ahead.
called life. Life just got hard. You know, and that
You said it
happens.
got hard? Yeah.
Hard. You got estranged because of your work schedules, how you all worked, and anything else. You know, that was just a period of time. And
Right.
you know, we tend to, when we hit that, we don't see an end. You know,
Right.
we don't see an end, and then we don't have the strength to push through, to persevere through that with our partner. So we just tend to shy away from our partner, and then next thing you know, we're estranged.
Right.
I have, in my opinion, I feel that long-term relationships, people tend to stay longer because of obligations. You know,
Yeah,
you have kids, so you feel obligated to stay because the kids are this age. You feel obligated, so that's why you stay longer versus
Right.
the reality of it. And the kids can see what's going on in the relationship. So sometimes you make things worse by staying longer. You can cause a lot of damage, and you might as well just assess the situation, have a conversation about it, and figure out where do you go from here.
Right. I'm glad you said that, because that was a big thing for me, to leave completely when we have kids, right? Because I know not just myself, but I hear a lot of men say, I don't want my kids around another guy. So these are some of the thoughts that was going through my head. I'm never going to not be there for my kids, right? So having kids with her, I was like, well, I feel obligated to stay. I feel obligated to be in that relationship. Now you said something else, Wonder, that I like. You said that oftentimes we look for our partners to fill a void within us, right? And that's exactly how it is. I've been like that my whole life. So I feel like I love hard because of traumas I had to endure in my life. So whoever is close to me, right? Whoever that says they're a friend, or whoever I got feelings for, whoever I'm in a relationship with, um, yes, I do look for them to fill a void, right? And maybe that is something else that I have to, do some more self reflection on. But it's like, that's what I look for. So the moment that I'm not getting it, I feel like you're against me, for lack of better words, and it makes me feel like a failure. It makes me feel unwanted, unloved, right? So these are demons that I also have to, live with. Right, like I said, a lot of trauma. So that on top of, because like when I talk about trauma, it's like, just with family. Like, I know when I was born, my father didn't want me. He said I wasn't his son. Um, he was saying my mom cheated. So it took me until I was like maybe 20 years old before I established a relationship with him.
Mhm.
Um, so it goes back to what I often tell people. Sometimes when you wasn't loved properly, it's hard for you to love properly. And I'm thinking that maybe that's has something to do with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I've been fighting demons my whole life, you know. So I'm just try to do right. I try to be the best version of myself. So in the relationship with Allison, like I try to be the best man possible. It's just like I said, when we started to go astray, it's one of those situations where it's hard to rebound from that, at least for me.
Yes. Yes, it is. It's difficult, but it's extremely important. It's you do it's unjust when you stay for the wrong reasons, and then when you're
Mm,
stepping outside of the relationship, to feel that temporary moment of happiness. It's just it's temporary, and look at the outcome. You have neither woman in your life right now because of that decision. You know what I mean?
right,
So
right.
yeah, we have to really self-reflect. You have a lot to unpack and self-reflect
Yeah.
to relationships that you just were in.
Yeah, and, it's harder because for me, because like I said, I do therapy once a week, and like Walter was saying, like you talk to this one, you get a certain response. You talk to this person, you get a different. So my therapist, they see, they try to unpack all these things that I don't necessarily agree with. It, like as far as this situation or just my life in general, they like to say that my therapist called me a narcissist. I don't agree with that. They call me a controlling person, a controlling man, which again I don't agree with. Like what prompted her to say that was, I was talking about the relationship with Allison, right? And I was like, at this point in my life, right, in this stage of my life, I'm not for negativity. I'm all about positivity, and I don't argue. Like I don't like to argue, right? Like I might get mad here and there, but I don't do the whole arguing thing. So I'd rather walk away from an argument that or a situation than argue. And as soon as I said that, my therapist says, that's a narcissist and that's controlling. You're trying to control the situation by trying to
Well,
manipulate it the way you want it to be. And then when it can't happen the way you want it to happen, you walk away, which I forgot how she said it. That's fleeing. That's fleeing, which is signs of control. Now I can see once you break it down where she's trying to go with that, but I just don't agree with that.
Walter dropped off. Is there any way you can bring him back in?
He has he has the link. Because he had this problem before we went live too. But he said he had to switch phones, so I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll tell him. So, also with when seeking a therapist, you have to make sure you have the right fit for you as well. You can interview a couple of therapists before you actually hire one. You're hiring that therapist to help you navigate
Right.
through your thoughts and your life. So sometimes if you don't feel like it's a good fit, the best thing to do is to have a conversation with another therapist. Now,
Mm.
if you seek another therapist, and they're telling you the same thing, then maybe you are actually the problem, and because you don't want to agree with what's being said, then that may
Right.
be an issue. You know what I mean?
Yes. Now, what's crazy? The ironic thing is this: I actually have two therapists, but the one I see more than the other one because the one is more expensive, and I like the more expensive one. I do. Like he never called me controlling none of these things. Like it's a different feel when the session is over. Like with him, I get off. I mean, we complete the session, and I feel empowered. I feel great, and I feel like I accomplished something. With the woman therapist I have, she just make me feel like attacked almost. I'm like, why is she saying these things about me? But when I vent to people I vent to say, "Oh, I can see that. That makes perfect sense." Like people lately been telling me, "Yes, I feel like you are controlling,"
You
and
know,
go ahead.
sometimes you have to deal with the hard questions, the things that we don't like. Now,
Mm,
may not always agree with them, but sometimes in therapy, I've found that whether we agree or disagree with the information, it's probably best to sit down and really think about it. And one of the things that Wonder and I tend to do, because people have a tendency when we hear words like a narcissist, what does that mean? We have a vague definition of it and things like that. So we like to clarify the meaning of words before we start applying them or not applying them, so that at least we're working on from the same point. so that we can have a mutual understanding before we go. But I'm going to tell you, Wonder and I, we battle quite a bit, and we always go back to the dictionary for, what is the meaning, so we can both operate that way. So, you might want to start, and think about it. Don't just dismiss it because you don't like it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Because the shoe might fit.
Yeah, and I would like to add, when you go to your therapy appointments, you're there for 45 minutes to an hour. And sometimes
Right.
it's important to listen to hear instead of listening to respond. People don't even know how to listen. Listening is a skill. So
Right.
oftentimes when people hear something, it triggers them. You feel like you're being labeled. You feel you may not agree with it, but sometimes it's just good to just sit, listen, and then process the information after your session. Like, you don't have to
Right.
go toe to toe, head to head with what she just said. You don't have to agree with it, but sometimes
Right.
it's good to just listen. And then afterwards, when you go home, really research the information that you just discussed with your therapist and see if there might be some truth to it. And you mentioned that other people around you that know you have said, your therapist might be right. She might be onto something.
Right.
Your comment.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
some comments.
yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like, all right, so in you guys' opinion, like, if somebody tells you, oh, I see this about to be conflict or it's an argument, I'm just gonna walk away. Is that you look at that as controlling?
No, if it's an argument, I don't think that's controlling. But if it's a conversation that needs to happen,
Right.
have the conversation, but try to keep it out of an argument. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Don't just throw your hands up and be like, all right, whatever. Take a moment, take a minute, come back
I
to it if
guess.
you have to. But if the conversation needs to happen, have the conversation.
I guess that's something I could work on because, like I said, from experience, man, like, arguing and yelling is just not healthy. And I know even if the conversation need to be had, if it's just both parties just yelling and arguing, going back and forth, to me, I'm not going to benefit from that. So the way I look at my life now is it's either a benefit or a detriment, right? If I see a detriment and I don't see a benefit, I'm walking away. And that's just the new me, right? And a lot of people say, like, "Oh, you just don't care." To me, that's not what it is. I do care. I don't care to argue. I care about my health too much to sit there and go back and forth,
So you
right?
have
And that's what I'm at.
that's a boundary you set for yourself. One thing
Right.
what I do when we discuss the topics, sometimes we go, like he mentioned earlier, head to head, and disagree. But it never gets disrespectful. He'll say, "Wonder, you know what?" Or I'll say, "Walter, you know what? Let's just end the conversation, and then we'll a day or two will go by, and then we'll come back and readdress the situation." So we don't argue. There's ways to get your point across and end
Right.
conversations without being disrespectful or angry with one another.
See, and that, I guess, but that got to go both ways too. Like, one person can't be the calm one, and then the other one is irrational and just can't come to that happy medium. You know what I'm saying? So
Well,
it's got to be something that. Go ahead.
no, it's not that. It's just the rule that we have, that we're not going to get disrespectful, but we will shout, scream, talk over each other, and kick and everything else. Absolutely, but we don't get personal, but we both have an understanding that when we are having these arguments, we're doing it with a purpose to better what we are doing.
Right.
We may not agree on the path, and that's
Right.
okay. But in a relationship, you're not agreeing on a path, whatever the case is. Somebody wants to be heard, someone that doesn't want to hear the other person. So sometimes you just gotta let that person go. Let them say what they're gonna say.
Yeah.
Mm.
And you got to find ways to communicate and do this. But remember, when you're in the relationship, you're dealing with raw emotions at that point. You know what I'm saying? It's not that cool, calculating kind of thing. It's raw emotions. You got to let them get it.
Right.
So, like she said, sometimes you just have to listen and not respond.
Right. Now, two other things I want to touch on real quick. The one, like, even though I told you, like, we'll go days where we don't talk, me and the other woman, right? The one thing that's been a constant with me is even though she told me she was gonna make an appointment for this abortion, like I've been trying to see if I can spend time with her or see her or hang out, whatever. She always said no. I can't have you seeing me, right? So a part of me had it to this day been wondering, did she get an abortion or is she still pregnant? I don't know. So that's one question that, because every time I asked her, she'll avoid the question. She never said yes. She never said no. So a part of me was like, okay, this is why she don't want to see me, because maybe she is, right? Now, I don't know if that's wishful thinking, or I don't know if I'm just being a detriment to myself, or I don't know if it's valid for me to feel that way. But that's something that goes through my mind too.
So one of the things we had a conversation with on our dating reset podcast is that sometimes women fake things. You have to be aware. Sometimes things are because they want a certain outcome. We came across this website called fakebaby.com, where there's fake ultrasounds, fake doctor's letters, fake positive pregnancy tests. So and for a doctor to agree to get on the phone and call you to tell you that the woman is pregnant, it's just like that.
One second. So she didn't call me. She was at the doctor's appointment because I wanted to go, but me being her boss, would it look like we both called out for the same thing? So I was at work, and so I had called her, and then the doctor was there. I asked to speak to somebody that speaks English. So that's what happened with that. So they didn't call me. I called her, and then the doctor was saying something in Spanish. I was like, get somebody that can speak English, and that's how I found out. Right. So then picked her up like 2 days after that, got the test. And she took the test. Did I go to the bathroom with her? No, but I was with her, right? And then, yeah. So for me, that was like, oh, okay, we're golden. Everything is good. But like I said, I don't know if I'm torturing myself, but sometimes I say, like, well, why can't she see me, right? And if she don't want to see me for whatever reason, that's cool. But she never answered the question when I asked her if she's still pregnant or not. She avoided. She don't say yes. She don't say no. So a part of me was like, what if she don't want to see me because she still is?
So is there any way for you to find that information out? I don't know. Just is there any way for you to find it out besides just I'm going to make a phone call? She's not answering me. She's not telling me. I'm going to hang up, and now I'm just going to go off and wonder. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
There's a way for you to, I don't know, is she working somewhere or whatever that you can just say, oh, there she is. Oh, look at that. She is pregnant. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought about going to the job, but at the same time, I don't want to look like I'm crazy. Like, so that's why I never did it that way. But I thought about it just to go, just to see her. I don't know what she may or may not have said to people at the job, because, like I said, I was her boss, but I no longer work there anymore. But so I don't know what she may or may not have been saying to people. So I just never wanted to appear to be crazy. So I never took that approach. So that's the one thing I wanted to add to that story. Now the bigger part of that is like I said, the story gets crazier a little bit. So it was too much for Allison to deal with, I guess. So at one night, all right, so let's rewind a little bit. So at one point she was like, if you split your time, I won't cause a problem. So I was doing that for the most part. One night we were supposed to hang out, whatever, and I came home and I had birthday gifts from the other woman. So I took them out and I put them on that little coffee table. I was going to take a picture and put it on social media. That's what people do. Now, Allison came around the corner and she seen this and she went crazy. She wanted to argue. And like I said, I'd rather walk away. So I was like, if this is what you want to do, I'm out. So she wanted to argue. She's like, this is the door. Nobody's keeping you here. So I remember calling, texting Esther, and I'm like, listen, if you want to see each other, I'll be on my way. So she said, yeah. So I packed some bags and I left. Like 3:00 in the morning, the police come. I wanted to go into jail. Now I didn't know what for. And so, and then they was like, for domestics. So I'm like, domestics. So it was like my kid's mom said that I hit her, and then I left the kids home alone by themselves, which never took place. So it was like 5 days. Now I'm without both of them. And so that's how I lost my job. That's why I no longer work there. And I get released. I seen Esther a couple times, and like I said, she talked to her parents about it, her family. Her family was like, "Oh, it's too much drama. He's too toxic." So all this led up to why she's saying that she didn't want nothing else to do with me. But then we was trying to work it out, and then she just completely just went cold turkey on me. So that's another dimension of this whole situation. And I know my kid's mom still wanted to be in a relationship with me, but like for me, it's like, how do you trust somebody that gets you arrested for something you never did? So for me, it's like I couldn't even, I don't even look at her the same. Like it's hard for me to do that.
That
Right?
happened.
That trust is go. Go ahead.
That happened to me in my marriage. It was funny because I came home from work, found my stuff all to the left outside, and I called the cops. I said, I'm not going to deal with this. I don't want no problems. I called the cops. I wound up getting arrested.
Right.
Spent my night in jail and everything else. And I was like, you know what? This is, but she didn't tell them. She didn't say, no, he never hit me. He never did anything. She's just like, yep. She just followed along with the officer and what he was saying and everything else. And, I spent my night. I'm like, what in the world? This is crazy.
I know two wrongs don't make a right, but like, how do you trust someone that cheats too? If you're dealing with,
that's a good point.
That is a good point.
Her putting your clothes outside compared to having to deal with the cheating and the dishonesty and the hurt and disappointment that comes out of that. When you balance the two, which I mean, there's no comparison. So I mean, and we forgive all the time, and it's just like, one and the moment a woman does something, it's like you all, it's so hard for you all to forgive for something, but you all the dragged us through the ringer, and it's just like,
No, I agree with that, but I think the thing is this: once trust is gone,
yes,
once trust is gone for whatever the reason is, getting it back is difficult, and anything that happens thereafter when the trust is broken is all going to seem suspect. Right. And if you're looking for something, guaranteed you are going to uncover it, whether it's the truth or not, because you're going to make it fit your narrative. And that's the bad piece.
Correct. But when the conversation comes up, can we work on this relationship? If you cannot get past the trust issue, you should not pretend that there's something there and it's workable. If trust is your bottom line and not working on this relationship, then be honest. Why act like it's going to be something and it's not? Trust is breaking me. I'm all set.
One of the things that I always say to people, and I've said this to one, and I use this analogy, we lead with our heart and we lead with our mind and all the rest of the stuff. And I break it down this way. Our feelings are in our hearts and everything else. We feel what we feel. It's like a 2-year-old kid. 2-year-old kid just does whatever, has no knowledge about what it's doing, wants to touch things, wants to do things, but the mind is always sitting there. It's like the parent. Don't do that. Don't go that way. Watch out for this. Do this. But the heart just wants to do what it wants to do. So, when I learned that lesson, when I'm in a situation, I'm like, okay, well, who am I following here?
Right.
Is my mind telling me that this is just no good? Because your heart and mind are very seldomly ever going to agree upon something.
Right.
Yeah. And what I Walter, I'm a facts over feelings type of person.
That you are.
Feelings doesn't change fact. You can be caught up in the feelings of caring about someone, wanting the relationship to work, seeing all this potential, but it doesn't change the fact that this person was dishonest. This person has continued with this behavior for X amount of time. It doesn't change those things. And when you get caught up in the feelings, you will make the wrong decision over and over and over again. Even with the kid analogy that Walter used, when the kid doesn't listen, falls and bump his head, there's a chance the kid is not going to do that again. They've learned their lesson. But we as humans keep on falling into the same trap, adults falling into the same trap over and over.
Right. Now, you have mentioned trust. This is like trust is important to me as well. But like I say, I can't hold. All right, so we got infidelity on one hand, and we got on the other hand, I got you locked up for something you didn't do. I can't even put those on the same scale. I think that's one's far more drastic than the other. You know what I'm saying? So even though they both have something to do with trust, I just can't. I don't think it's an equal balance there. I just think like what she did is jacked up. You know what I'm saying? Like
Absolutely.
now, infidelity is wrong, right? But like to lie to get somebody locked up, it's even wronger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I like you said, there's no comparison, but to be in a relationship, to go out and cheat on your partner, come home, look them in the eye, lay next to them, act like nothing happened, is like I'd rather be lied on and put in jail for something I didn't do. Like, I cannot be friends if I have a best friend that cheats.
Right.
I can't be friends with that person, because if you can do that to a partner,
Right.
I'm uncertain with what you can do to me. How do you view our friendship?
Right.
She's, but you gotta think, it's emotions, man. Emotions, there is no bounds to emotions.
Right.
It will do what it's going to do, big, small, or indifference. And you're talking about they don't weigh out, and again, I'm not a religious person, but it says there's no such thing as a big sin or a little sin. It's what it is. Once you start down that path, where it goes,
Right. See,
that's where it goes.
So you definitely give me something to think about here a little bit, because I was looking at the severity of things, right? Because so this is the thing. Even though it was she went to the courts and she did what she had to do as far as dropping the charges, and she said that certain things didn't take place. She made it all up. This is the thing. The state picked it up, so now it's a no contact order where I can't see her and I can't even see my own kids. For it's about to be by the time we go to court for this, it'll be a month and a half without seeing my kids and stuff. So that is drastic. So this is the thing. I never stopped loving my kid's mom. I never stopped caring for her, right? And hence part of the reason why I said it was hard for me to completely just walk away. But then when I look at the damage she has caused, I sit here and I think to myself, how can I see myself in a relationship with her?
She caused?
I'm sorry?
You said she caused?
So you sound like my therapist now. Because when I say that, my therapist says, if it wasn't for the infidelity, she wouldn't have did that. So therefore, I'm the root cause. Is that what you're getting at?
Yeah.
No, because we can go back further to the estrangement, right?
Right.
Her not participating, in trying to make it better. I mean, we can go all the way back, but all I'm saying is, once we start down a certain path, where it goes, But somebody has to put the brake on it, and you can point the finger at her if you want to, but try to assume what it is that you deal with, what you've done and what your behavior was, because you're not going to control her. Deal with self. And that's what we talk about, dealing with self. Deal with self.
Right.
Your controls in.
And I would love to have this conversation with you 6 months from now, because when you're healing, when you take accountability for your actions, and when you heal, the conversation will be a lot different. Instead of pointing the finger, the conversation will be a lot different right now. And right now, you have a lot of accountability.
Oh, he's hurting.
Yeah.
I am, but
he's hurting.
But I know how to listen, though.
Yes, accountability is going to be a big part of healing, and I can guarantee you, once you start that process, our conversation 6 months from now is going to be different from the conversation we're having right now.
Yeah, when you start
go ahead
in your ways and what you've done and accounting for that, you'll be surprised as to the changes that'll happen.
Right. And listen, I can see where you're going with that. Like I said, but I often tell people that changes in life starts with self, right? And when I still talk about these traumas from growing up in my childhood and stuff, those are also demons that I have to get past as well to make things better moving forward, but I look at things and I rationalize in my head like this. I say, well, I am a completely different man than I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, right? So for me, I feel like that's progress, right? Like, I'm not out the woods yet, but if you look at then versus now, you'll say, oh, you made a complete turnaround. Like, it's a lot of changes.
What ways are you different?
I mean, like as far as anger issues,
You said you're a different man than you was 10 years ago, right?
right.
In what way?
Like I used to fight a lot. But I used to have a lot of anger, right? I'm not saying it's not there somewhere, but like I don't express myself. I don't lash out like I used to, right? So for me, that's progress. I went from not caring so much back then to caring every day. Like I care nothing more but than for my kids and my success and progress, right? That's my focus. And it was never my focus like years ago. I lived day to day back then. Like now I live life with a purpose.
Have you ever heard of the term emotional intelligence?
I have.
You know what it means?
I pretty much
No, see, this is where we say, not what we think it means.
right.
What does it mean?
All right. So if you put it like that, because I think I know what it means. So I'm gonna say no then.
So that is something that I'm going to leave that with you to look it up, and
Okay.
you figure that out, and you see if it is part of you, because you can grow these kinds of ways, but you have to have an emotional intelligence when
Right.
you're moving forward, and these are kinds of conversations that we don't have within our communities. These aren't the things that these are not the mechanisms we learn to deal with the things that we have.
Right.
Go run around the track, or something like suck it up and be a man, all these other kinds of things. And I am a proponent for good mental health. I really am, and being self-aware, because by the time we hit 60, and I'm 60, we done had a lot of trauma. So I don't know how
Right.
we figure to be, an ideal human being.
Right.
Mental health is something that we need along the way every day.
I agree. And like I said, in the Black community, that's something we do suffer with, So a lot of times I do get on this platform, and I like to talk about therapy and counseling and mental health, because like I said, I know in the Black community, it's something we struggle with on a day-to-day basis. Um, it's just it's crazy. At a young age, one of the things I always wanted was to give back to the community. I always wanted to. I'm talking about when I was like 16 or 17. I never wanted a kid to go through what I was going through. So I said, when I get older, I'm gonna do certain things to better not just better myself, but to better the community or better people of color, right? And that's how I feel. I often tell people I'm pro-Black, and a lot of people they get that misconstrued, right, with races. I'm like, being pro-Black does not mean you're racist, right? But yeah, like I said, in the Black community, it's a lot of things we suffer from. Like, it's just the way we were raised. Like, I know my parents didn't teach me a lot of things that I should know today.
And I just wanted to add, with your kids, you do have rights as a father. Like you can go to court and have court ordered visitations and stuff like that. To not see your kids in 1 month is a lot on your kids.
It is, but what they did was they put a no contact order because the state picked it up. They said because because of child neglect, because
It was alleged violence.
Violence and neglect of the children, because it was alleged that I left them in the house unattended by themselves, and they said that's not what a father should do. They said that could have been real ugly, but like I said, it never happened, right? And I understand they say we got to go based on what's on paper, and I get it. So we have court coming up in like 9 days, something like that. So everything can be situated then. So. But it's like I said, to not be there for my kids, it's been tough, right? And I sit here and every day I wake up, I say, I wonder how my kids feel about the situation. Like, what are they thinking? What's going through their minds? So it's been tough. And my mom, she go watch them. My mom would come back and tell me that they're out of control. They don't do this. They don't do that. And the first thing I say is because they need their father. So like I said, it's hard to deal with. And then like I said, I know Rhonda had commented and says about accountability. I need to take accountability, and I can't get mad at the outcome of my wrongdoing, right? It's just, and like I said, I guess at the end of the day, I can't really get mad. But my thing is, it's just what she did cause it's a lot. It's damaging in a major way. And I'm not negating what I did at all. And what I said earlier was, she didn't make it easier for me, because like she like I said, when she was like, "Oh, just split your time with us," And me being a man and being in this situation, as wrong as it is, that's basically telling me, like, go ahead. I'm not going nowhere. Just go ahead. Split your time. Like, you want to see her, go ahead. So I was already going through it. So it's like, okay. To me, I was like, she gave me her blessing in a sense. But all she was really doing, and I ain't noticed in the beginning, all she was really doing was sitting back and collecting data. Because everything I said, she used against her. Right? Like
now, when a woman tells you to go ahead, go do something, that is not what you do.
So no, when you said split your time with us, did you sit down and say, okay, I'm gonna be with you Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Esther's gonna take Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? Did you sit down and communicate
yes.
splitting the time with her?
Yes.
You did, really?
I did. Yes.
She outsmarted him. Right? She said, go ahead, right? He went and did. She collected the data and used it against him. Where he messed up was he should have had it in writing.
Yeah. And this is her right. Hold on, this is her right. Because like I said, she watches my podcast. That's her that she just said stop it. She knows I was splitting my time. The only time that it got wacky is when she wanted to argue. Then I left and went with the other one. Like if I'm splitting my time, right? Like let's make the best of it. Don't sit there. It's your day. You're with me, and you want to argue because you know me. You know I'm going to leave. So just make the best of it. Let's just enjoy each other's company, and that's it. She didn't know how to do that.
Listen, I'm gonna pull your man card here, man. I'm gonna hold you accountable, right? And man, I'm just gonna hold you accountable, right? Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should do it.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. You have to stand, 10 toes down and hold the line. You have to kind of do that, right? And you have to figure this out. Now I don't know.
Right.
And I didn't get that kind of information when I was growing up, accountability. I had none. I ran wild and I did whatever I wanted to do. But as 60 years old, as of this past Sunday, I'm going to tell you, man, you got to hold the line. Just because you can do something, don't just go and do that. That's not responsible.
Right. And she just comments, how many times did I tell you to go? Now, listen, to be fair, it's been plenty of times she said just go. But just the thing, when she was saying to go, she was talking leave completely, like just pack my bags and never come back. And my thing was this, I said, okay, if that's what you want me to do, like, you got to give me some time to find a place. She was like, no, I don't care if you sleep in the car. Like, if you're going to choose her, you got to go. So that's when she said, how many times did I tell you to go? Yeah, she did say that. But to just up and go without no plan, that would have been a complete failure for me.
Right. But why couldn't you say, okay, I'm deciding to go. Give me some time. Like, okay, if she wanted you to go, you come back. And that's emotional. So if she said, okay, go, how come you just couldn't say, okay, I'm going to go. Let's just end this relationship, but I'm going to need some time to save some money and figure out a plan.
Right. I got you. Like I said, I know the situation was sticky. It was. And listen, I didn't necessarily like the situation, but like I said, my individual time, I enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, Rhonda's on the roll today. She said she don't owe me anything. I mean, again, and I don't want to sound like I'm not taking accountability, but it's hard because the relationship, like I said, it grew apart. It just did, and I get it. Maybe so. What I should have done a long time ago, before all of this, I should have made plans, or we should have had those conversations where, like, if we can't rectify this, then maybe we just need to put our foot down and just go our separate ways. Maybe that should have happened way beforehand. But to be in the situation, it was tough. Like I said, I tried to weigh my options out, and I tried to sit here and say, well, if I completely leave, what I got to be like, for me, I needed reassurance. That was the biggest thing for me. I needed reassurance from this other party, and like I said, it was the language barrier. It was a couple of things that I was like, could we have a better run, more of a successful run than my current relationship? And it's the uncertainty for me to make me sit there and say, I can't make that decision right now.
That's the thing. You're trying to get a guarantee. There are no guarantees, man. The only
You're right.
guarantee is you. The
You're
only
right.
if you're gonna leave, you're doing it for you, not I'm gonna jump from this branch to this branch. You know, if you're gonna do this, you're doing it for you. You know, and these are the kinds of conversations that again we don't have. This is kind of advice that we don't get.
Mhm.
You know,
Right.
we get bad information, unfortunately.
Yeah,
You know,
Right.
and oftentimes what's confusing, what drives me crazy is that we will come to the internet and ask a bunch of strangers what we should do in our relationship with someone that we've been with for years and we've
Right.
laid down and had kids with. And it's hard for people to be in these relationships and have conversations with one another, but they run to the internet for advice. It's wild. It's crazy.
TikTok say today, Mr. TikTok, right? And
I
we
mean,
find
that
sometimes that information is fabricated. So
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
what? So so I'm gonna say this. Maybe some people do it because maybe it's more so of getting like different people's insight, right? Like I don't think everybody just runs to the internet to necessarily get information that they're going to take to the grave, right? I think it's more so just, or maybe some people do it just to get it out, right? Because we already talked about how some people don't go to therapy when they know they need it, right? So I think sometimes it's about just getting it out. You know what I'm saying?
right, but we tend to look for things that fit our scenario.
Yes.
You know, we're looking for that thing that gives us the justification, the explanation to say, I did it because this, and that's something that you're just sprouting back that you heard someone else say.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
Right.
you know, we do go there to look for, you know, matching situations to get that justification to fit our scenario and for us
Yeah.
to do what we're doing. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's where we fail. You know, we gotta be people of character. And I'm not saying you
Right.
do, you don't, but you know, we have to have good character to make these kinds of decisions. And I'm not saying that you're a bad individual, and I'm not saying that you're a good individual. I'm just saying, you know, there are spots in our character that may not be as strong and as developed as we need to have them. We
Right.
all have these character flaws within us, some way, shape, form, or to some degree, you know.
Right.
And you know, how do we strengthen those characters? You know, how do we get that over that part? You know,
And I'm part of it is accountability, self-awareness, and self-reflection.
That's true indeed. True indeed, man. And you know, and loving self, right? I think that has something to do with it too, man. Because I think when we talk about relationships, successful relationships, I think you have to have the same love for that relationship as you have for yourself, right? So if it's something that's broken within you, I think that it's going to be a hindrance in almost everything you do in life, right? That's what I think. Because a lot of times when I do these self reflections and I ask myself these hard questions, sometimes I say, well, if this didn't happen to me in my life, or if this didn't happen, or if I had this in my life, or I had this person in my life, things would be better, right? And I hate to go to that, right? And I hate to resort to that, but when I ask myself these hard questions, that's what I fall back on. It's people pleasing things in my life, and I think for me that's what makes it hard, right? And I'm still working on that. You know, it's easier said than done. So
well, here's
that's
a
it.
question you may want to ask. You ask yourself, if this hadn't happened to me, if this had, how about asking this question: what do I need to not do it again? What
That's
do I
fair.
need in my life to keep me from repeating what I'm, you know, from what's happened? You know,
Right.
not just say, oh, well, if, you know, it rained, if it hadn't rained on last Tuesday, I wouldn't be wet on Wednesday. You know, how about saying, what do I need not to get wet again? Put on a raincoat, get an umbrella, you know,
Right.
put the things in your life that'll keep you from doing that. I think if you concentrate on those things as opposed to, oh man, if this hadn't happened, you know, I wouldn't be thus. So just figure out what you need to keep you on your path.
Yeah,
Right.
but before you do that, you have to really figure out the why. Like why
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
gotta figure out the why.
Absolutely.
Right. Now you talk about specific why or just why in general?
Why are you doing what you're doing?
Yeah, why are you doing what you're doing. And you know, it can go back to your relationship with your mom and your dad, and them being heavily involved in church, and like those things could be traumatizing for you. So to figure out, you have to go back to your childhood and go from there.
And that's one of the hardest things for me, to go back to my childhood, because that's where all the traumas are. You know what I'm saying?
That-
My mom and my father, they had me and my younger brother, but they wasn't really together in a relationship, if that makes sense. Like, because
Mhm.
my father was often on a drug addict, and my mom she was young when she had kids. My mom had 5 boys at a young age. She was pregnant at 15, pregnant at 16, 22, 25, 26. So for my mom, it's like she feels as though she missed out on her childhood. My mom feels like she didn't do anything that she should have done at that age, because she was always pregnant, and she had all this pressure added to her at a young age.
Yeah.
So, like, so my mom, she did the best she could, but so she wasn't raising me and my younger brother, and it's like she had to work 2 jobs. So it's like I never felt neglected by my mom, but she was never there because she worked the 2 jobs. But she was providing. She was a strong provider, and worked wonders. When everybody counted her out, she persevered. I counted out plenty of times when she proved me wrong. Now my father, on the hand, like I said, me and him didn't have a relationship until I was like maybe like 20 years old. Right, I knew who he was. I was like living with him in the summertime. Then at one point, like I started living with him, but we bumped heads. We didn't get along. So like I said, when it comes to that love and wasn't being loved properly, I think, like I said, that's has something to do with it, and that's why for me as a father, I'm gonna say the same thing every man say or every parent say. Like, when we have kids, we try to right the wrongs from our childhood, right? I sit there and I say, the things I had to endure, my kids won't have to. My father wasn't there for me, but I'm gonna be in my kids' life. I would never not be in my kids' life. Never. That's just never gonna happen. And that's another thing in the black community. Like, a lot of black men, they're absent from their kids' life, and I just won't fall victim to that. That's just, what I'm saying. Um, yeah, that's why I understand the importance of loving and being loved. Right.
Right,
And like I said, go ahead. You about to say
right.
something?
No, is your mom still around?
Yes.
Have you thought
Because
have you thought about having a conversation with your mom? Because being a great provider, but not providing love are two different things. Putting food on the table, paying the bills, making sure you need cleats for a soccer game, football game. Providing is totally different from saying I love you, hugs, sitting down at the table, having dinner as a family, showing that love is two different, totally different things.
and I just happened to be my brother. He said disobedience. Oh my Lord. He said he said don't do that. I mean, okay, so I'm gonna say something to what he just said about disobedience. Like, when you missing a lot of things growing up, like, it's hard to sit there and say disobedience, in my opinion, right? And I don't want to say, I do take accountability. Like, I haven't been the best as far as obedience, but we are creatures of habit, and we live based off of our environment, right? Like, so a lot of things was missing. So growing up, it's like, I don't know, a lot of it has to do with my surroundings and what I was subject to as far as my disobedience. Like, love my mom to death, we don't get along, right? Like, I can shower my mom with love, and she'll find something negative to say. So, you know what I'm saying? So to me, that's hurtful. It's hard for me to deal with. Like, just recently, one of my older brothers, he called me because he came, uh, and had a disagreement. Like, him and 2 of my other brothers and my mom, they left. I was supposed to be with them, but I didn't. I chose to stay back, right? And he called me the next day and said, "Hey, as a man, as your brother, can you tell me what happened? Because as a man, as a brother, you should be able to convey your feelings to me." So we had a deep conversation, and then since then, like, so far he been calling to check on me, because I told him that's something else I suffered, or have a hard time dealing with. It's like, nobody calls to check on me or my well-being or my mental health, right? So ever since we had that conversation, it's something that he's been doing, and I feel good about it. I do. In the beginning, I was like, no, it doesn't mean that, because you're only doing it because I told you it's bothering me, and it's not genuine. That's how I felt. But, like, he still continued to do it to this day, so it means a lot, right? I think at the end of the day, everybody needs that.
Yeah.
If you, right? Because for me, it's like, I tell people I'm at peace with not having people in my life. But am I really at peace? I don't think so, because I still complain about it. So if I was really at peace with it, why would I complain, right? Like, it's still things that bother me. So that's not really being at peace with it. I think I say at peace with it to just rationalize my head, to calm myself down, right? I think it's more of a suppression. But nobody really calls on me and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" Right? And it's hard. And I think that's another reason why I love so hard, like I do. And that's what we were saying earlier. When I have that attachment to somebody, and then they're not feeling that void, I feel like, what am I doing wrong? Right? And it makes me feel. Go ahead.
What does love mean to you? What does that look like?
What does love mean? I mean, since what I love the love word. It's peace, right? Being at peace, feeling wanted, feeling important. It's that deep connection, man. Make like once you feel like you're not alone, right? To me, that's how I would break that down. That's what love means to me.
Now, does it mean the same to the person that you with? Do you all have the same understanding?
That I don't know. I mean, I think maybe I should have asked those questions, but it's like somebody say I love you, then I'm like, okay, love is love, and if you say you love me, then I know my understanding is. I know how I break that down, so it was good enough for me. But I never sat down and asked that person what love means to them. So I could, I don't know.
So, I mean, you said something earlier that was important. Important. You said you can shower your mother with love, and she can always find something negative to say, and
Right.
that is a trigger for you. So when you don't get that in your relationships, it's going to be a trigger for you. So I think, it's important to have a conversation with your mom. It's going to, when she makes you feel that way, it's important. Like your brother reached out to you and had that conversation with you and started calling you every week. Having those conversations and dialogues is a conversation starter, and it can change the dynamics in a relationship.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You
You're
got
right.
nothing to lose but everything to gain.
Right.
Right. You're right. So all right. So I guess, let's see. I don't want to say my pride. Maybe it's my pride. I I never want to be the first one, like, right? And especially if I feel like you're the one that's wrong with me, I don't want to be the first one to reach out to you, right? Like, so a lot of times I bottle a lot of my feelings and stuff inside, and I don't say nothing to nobody. It takes for somebody to get fed up and say, you know what, I don't like this. Why was you doing this? Why was you acting like this? For me to open up, and opening up is something I struggle with anyways.
Well,
You
that's
know?
gonna forever. If you don't address that, that's forever going to be a problem for you.
Mm.
Next relationship, you're gonna have the same problem, relationship after relationship, until you address what you just mentioned.
See, okay, and it's crazy because, like I said, not speaking to Esther, not really speaking to Allison or being able to express myself or ask these questions, right? I started to think like, am I not doing enough? Maybe I should dig deeper. Maybe I should ask, as you said, these questions and get to the root cause of it and focus on that instead of trying to focus on the big picture, right? Because for me, that's a lot of times I just look at the big picture and I don't look at the little picture, right? But that's why they have sayings like you got to crawl before you walk. And like I said, I understand that, and that's something that I keep telling myself I got to work on, right? Start small before I think about big, but I always think here, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, relationships are not always going to be perfect, and sometimes you have to have uncomfortable conversations within those
Right.
relationships. So it's important to have.
Right. It's like I said, it's just hard for me to be the first one to initiate that if I feel like you're doing the wrong, right? And that's something I need to get over.
Yes.
Like I said with my brother, he surprised me when he called me. He really did. But
Yeah.
2 days removed from that conflict or that situation, I started to be like, you know what? Maybe he do care. Maybe I had him wrong this whole time. Maybe I was wrong about him. Maybe
Yeah.
he do care. And then I started to say, no, we never know what other people have going on in their lives. Maybe he was going through something himself, and that's why he didn't reach out. But for me, I didn't never looked at that. I looked at it like that's my brother. Family is supposed to reach out, and this is what we go. This goes back to what we said earlier. Like I look for people to fill voids, right? So, like I said, it's a work in progress, man, and it's not gonna happen. It's not changes is not gonna happen overnight, and I understand that.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So,
Awareness is.
anything. Go ahead. Oh, awareness is key. Absolutely, absolutely. And you guys still do your podcast on, was it Thursdays, right?
Thursdays,
every other Thursday.
every other Thursdays, yeah, we find that works for us and our viewers. So we're bi-weekly every Thursday at 7 p.m.
Okay, yeah, because I know when I go on there and I see them on there, I save them because when you save them, you can go back and it's easy to go back and watch them. You just go to Facebook and just go to saved, and you could play them. Now a couple times it was hard for me to find them, but I had to keep scrolling. But I eventually do find them, and you guys have great dialogue together. And it's funny when Walter said sometimes y'all have this discourse where y'all go back and forth because that's one thing. It may be off camera, but on camera y'all just seem like a cohesive unit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Well,
I
go
thought you
back
guys
to
was
the
married.
second show, you'll see something very different.
You said the second show?
If you go back to the second show, yeah, it was very different.
That's crazy that you remember that. That's amazing,
But,
man. But
Well, that's when he learned about emotional intelligence, listening to hear and not respond. And he took it all in and he processed it, and we were better. That's how it works. Sometimes it's easier to just listen to hear instead of listening to respond. You get no
see,
response that way.
and that's key, man. That's why you got a man and a woman, right? We look at things differently, and we're just built differently, right? Like once a man understands a woman, I feel like then that makes us complete, right? And I'm not gonna say when a woman and no, I don't think it applies the other way around. But like once a man start looking at life with their heart, like a woman, right? Then that makes us complete. And that's something that I try to do myself. I try to look at things through a woman's lens, right? And because because when a man do certain things, right? That like some people might look as being feminine or woman like when men do that, then women from the outside looking in look at that man differently. They really do, and I see that. Like women love a man that's good with their kids and that's there and that's caring and compassion, right? Because women are naturally just built on emotion. So if a man can match that, that makes them a complete man.
Yeah,
So
empathy, compassion, understanding. Like trying to understand your partner is also really key.
right.
If sometimes a lot of things we react because we don't understand, but trying to get a
Hmm.
better understanding of what is trying to be communicated will make a big difference.
Right,
Like
right.
I said earlier, a lot of the times, Wonder and I, we have argued about what something means because what it
Right,
means to her is different than me, and then vice versa. And
right.
we always had. So I think in terms of like we're not together. We're not in a relationship, Wonder and I. And
Well, I
but
thought y'all was for a minute.
see, no, we're not. But we're partners in this dating reset, right? But
Right,
that is a relationship
right,
because if we don't function with each other, this relationship partnership won't last. So,
right,
these are things that these are things that we had to learn. Like we don't disrespect each other. We do. Our argument is always about bettering the podcast. That we both know. So we both know that we have a passion for that. But we
right.
still had to learn because we had a fight just not too long ago. But we've accepted that we are going to have these differences.
Right,
And I don't always like what she says to me. And I know she don't like what I say to her sometimes in terms of maybe how we'll ask a question or how we'll prod to a question. But
right,
it's always with the understanding we're trying to push each other to a point.
right,
You know what I'm saying? A point of understanding.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
And
So
like you,
accept that.
Yeah.
right, and like you said, that's definitely key because relationship don't always mean like a relationship like you're dating, like a relationship is with your mother, your kids, or whoever you can converse with on a day-to-day basis. That's a relationship, right? So it's about connecting to each other, man. So I appreciate that.
Yes.
Um, well, yeah. So for you got, oh well, did you have an episode today or is it next week? I mean, not today. This coming week, this
This
Thursday.
yes.
And what is it based on? Is it anything in
It,
particular?
yes, we're going to have a guest on the show who has been newly released from prison.
Mm,
He's done years in prison, and he was released in January, and he started dating. And he said he had a different flavor of the week, and he has decided to tap out and pause on dating. And I just want to dive into that because he said some interesting things that I think women need to hear. Sometimes I think we need to just pause, listen to hear, and not respond. And I think he said some things that are spot on, that's going to be kind of difficult for women to hear but need to hear. So I think we need to have this conversation with him.
Absolutely. And you said 7 o'clock?
Yes.
I'm gonna write that down. Make sure I tune in because you got me intrigued already.
Thank you.
Already. So yeah, especially and you say he did years, so that's and January. Now one question real quick before we conclude. You say he had a different flavor. What do you mean exactly? A different flavor.
He's been dating a woman of a different race. He's had
Okay.
A black woman. He has dated. He said he puts women in categories, and I think women need to know that when men meet you, they draw these conclusions based off of visual, like your body movement, the way you sit, the way you carry yourself, the way you hold your drink. Men pay attention to all those things, and we think we are one way, and they perceive us as another way, and they put us in boxes. And I think women need to, a lot of women are going to say, I don't care what men think and how they feel about the way I carry myself. But I think it's important to listen to this message because some women are delusional, and I think we attract what we are, not what we think we are. And I think it's important to just have this conversation and dialogue. If you keep attracting a certain type of person, I think you need to do a reassessment of yourself, why you keep attracting the same type of person. So,
that's a good one.
It's important to listen to.
Okay, I appreciate that. Well,
and that was
I go ahead.
That show of ours, how are you being perceived? That was a topic of ours, a while back.
Right.
So it's very true, and especially as a guy, and you're a guy. We like you said. Oh, I seen her. She was pretty. She was this. She was whatever. We size it up. We assess it, and and then we like, okay, she's girlfriend material.
No, one of the things what we try to do on the podcast is that when we specifically talk about women, we don't want to hear men do these things too. That's deflecting. Every time we have these conversations specifically about women or specifically about men, the women will say, men do these things too. And then the men will be like, women do these things too. We're not talking about the women right now. We're talking about the men. We're not talking about the men right now. We're talking about the women. Like, stop deflecting and just listen to the conversation and hear what the conversation is all about. Stop deflecting. Let's stick to the conversation at hand.
Right.
Walk. If it don't.
Right. Absolutely. Well, like I said, I enjoy having you guys on, and we definitely have a follow up, and definitely like 6 months from now, so and we can see where I'm at mentally and relationship wise at that point. But yeah, this is gonna conclude today's episode. I hope everybody that's been watching, like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll definitely tune in Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Yes, on Facebook Live, please. Dating
on Facebook Live. Yes. There you go.
Like and follow.
All right. I got you. All right. Be blessed.
All right.
We'll stay in touch.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.